We are back yet again to talk about the Garmin Fenix 8. Again, if you follow my channel, you know a couple of months ago, I published my initial review of the new Garmin Fenix 8, where I talked about all the new features and specs and my experience with it after a short amount of time. So if you want to learn all about the new features and specs and all the things that this watch can do, go watch that video. In this video, I want to treat it as more of a follow-up, where I want to talk about what this watch has been like to live with over the past 2 months. I've actually been wearing this particular Fenix 8 for well over 2 months, but I figured 2 months has a good ring to it. So this is sort of my long-term review of the Fenix 8, where I'm not going to be diving into the nitty-gritty details. We're going to be keeping this pretty high level. And for context, I've been wearing this watch every single day over the past 2 months, sleeping with it, running with it, going grocery shopping with it, all the things. This watch has been glued to my wrist. So I've got a fair amount of experience with it so far. With that intro out of the way, I want to dive into the first topic, and this is probably the most controversial topic, and that's going to be the software and reliability on the Garmin Fenix 8. If you have a Fenix 8, you know all about this already. Unfortunately, when this watch hit the ground and it was released, a lot of people identified bugs in the software on the Garmin Fenix 8. And I actually covered one of these bugs in a recent video, where if you took the Fenix 8 into cold water, like a cold plunge or even in the ocean, and the water was a certain temperature, like super cold, it would actually cause the watch to completely turn off and reboot itself, which is not great. And that was not the only issue identified by the users out there. People identified issues in the weather widget, where if you tried to add a city, it would crash the watch. Some other people reported that when they were trying to save their activity, the watch would crash and they lost all their data, and it didn't look good. Like initially, all of these complaints were definitely a concern. Now, fast forward a couple of months, and Garmin just published a new production firmware. It's not in beta, it's a full production version of the firmware. And this firmware, in my experience so far, has addressed, I think, most of the issues that most people were having with the Garmin Fenix 8. Like, I have not had this watch crash at all since I installed that new firmware. And that does not mean that all the issues are fixed, because I'm one person. I have a specific use case of mainly trail running, hiking, that sort of thing. And you might be thinking, well, doesn't Garmin test this stuff before they release a new product? And I'm sure they do. I don't know all the details, but a company like this typically has like a test user group that they give the watches to, and they go out and they do their thing, and they report back feedback or any issues they might have so they can fix it before release. Now, unfortunately, again, this is an entirely new code base. And because of that, when they finally started shipping these watches to the hundreds or thousands or millions of people out there, that's when these bugs started being identified, because there were so many people with these watches in their hands. And this is no different than other big brands out there. This kind of thing has happened to companies like Apple and Google, where they had to go back and issue firmware updates to fix issues. I'm blabbing now, and that's probably where I'll leave the software part of this and say that it's in a good state now. So if you've been on the fence about picking up a new Fenix 8, now might be the time to try it out. That's totally up to you. All I can say is it seems a lot better. Moving right along to the next topic, let's talk about the design, the comfort, and the looks of the Garmin Fenix 8 after the past month of using it. So first of all, the design and looks of this watch. I actually do really like the way this watch looks, and when I'm out in public, I've actually gotten a lot of compliments about this watch, people asking, what is that? That's a really cool looking watch, and I do like the way it looks. Now, one thing I wish I could change about the Fenix 8 is actually this little piece on the side here. They call this the sensor guard, and it actually protects the microphone and barometric altimeter underneath there. Now, I do think this actually does look cool. My beef with it is the color. This really only affects this specific model. By the way, this is the 47mm version of the AMOLED Fenix 8, and it's that spark orange color. So it comes with this orange band, and the orange band does tie into that accent on the side of the watch. Unfortunately for me, orange is not my favorite color, and I know what you might be thinking, why'd you buy the orange watch if orange is not your favorite color? Well, because I do like the raw titanium look of the watch, and I thought in my mind I could pair this with a different band to change the whole look of it, and I was planning on pairing it with this band here. This is my Garmin Forerunner 965, and this is my favorite color. Like, this is the lime green or flare green, whatever they call it. It's like a greenish yellow neon, and I absolutely love this color. I was fully intending on taking this band and putting it on my Fenix 8. Now, unfortunately, when I do that, it doesn't look that great because of that little accent on the side here. It really clashes with that green color. It just doesn't look that great. I really wish that Garmin would have chosen to make the actual case of the watch sort of a neutral color, having that raw titanium on the front and keeping that, but on the side here, making that match the front and back plate instead of being that orange color. Maybe I'm in the minority here, and this is purely my opinion, but it is a little bit annoying. When it comes to comfort on the Garmin Fenix 8 in the past 2 months that I've been wearing it, again, I've been sleeping with it every single night. I've had no issues with this watch in terms of comfort. Admittedly, I am used to a rather large watch. This is the 47mm form factor. I do have 16.5 centimeter circumference wrists, so it's right on the edge of what I find comfortable. I don't think I'd be able to pull off the 51mm version because my wrists are not huge, but if you have larger wrists, you might be able to do it. But like I said, I've been sleeping with this watch, I've been wearing it every day, and I haven't found myself needing to take it off all that often. I pretty much just leave it on until it needs to charge. Sometimes I take it off when I'm in the shower, but for the most part, it's been glued to my wrist. The only thing I would say about the wearability and comfort of this watch is that it is slightly high profile. Like, it does feel like it sticks off my wrist a little bit, and because of that, I have whacked it off of doorknobs and concrete walls and bricks and things like that. That just happens when you wear a slightly larger watch. And that kind of leads us into the topic of durability. These titanium models do show scratches fairly easily. So for me, I've been wearing this watch 24 hours a day. I've been doing yard work with it. I've been working around the house and doing home projects and stuff like that, along with trail running and hiking and running and all that stuff. And throughout the past 2 months, I have not babied this watch. And I've whacked it off of various things like rocks and trees and doorknobs and concrete walls and bricks and everything in between. So as you can see, there are a couple of nicks and scratches on this titanium bezel, and that's to be expected. The good news about titanium is if that really bothers you, you can actually buff this out. You can buy like a titanium buffing kit off Amazon, and you can wipe it down and it should come out because titanium is a really durable material, but it does have like an oxidation layer that can show scratches relatively easily. The good news though is that the sapphire display that I have on this model is completely flawless. I have 0 scratches, and again, no screen protector, no babying. I've been beating this thing up and it's still looking really good. And that brings us to the next topic, battery life. How has the battery life on the Garmin Fenix 8 been holding up over the past 2 months? It's basically been meeting expectations and the spec sheet. I know there's a lot of people in Garmin forums and Garmin Facebook groups who are having issues with the battery life on the Garmin Fenix 8. Now, all I can say is there's a lot of variables when it comes to battery life, your screen brightness, what kind of use case you're using, how much GPS you're using every day. But for me, I think I fall right into the standard criteria when it comes to the spec sheet, because Garmin claims you can get about 16 days on a single charge with this watch. And I do have the always on display turned off because that's what I prefer. Depending on how much GPS activity I'm doing, I'm typically getting between 9 or like 12 days on a single charge with this watch. And the same goes for GPS on battery life, where you can expect up to 38 hours with the default all systems mode and the always on display turned off. Again, I'm seeing pretty much the same numbers there when it comes to the spec sheet as to my real world situation with battery life in GPS mode. Moving on to the next topic, and that's going to be the new dive features with the leak-proof buttons and the depth sensor and all of that. Now, for my specific use case, I don't really ever go in the water, and just because I own this watch hasn't changed my opinion on that, so I don't really have a lot to share about the dive features of the Fenix 8. I will say having the dive certification does give me sort of a peace of mind where when I am exposed to water, I expect this watch to perform above average. I'm not worried about clicking the buttons when I'm underwater or in the shower or something like that. And that brings us into the next topic I want to talk about with the Fenix 8, and that is the speaker and microphone on board this watch. How often do I use it? What do I use it for? Well, I don't use it as much as I thought I would. Like when this product was announced, I was super excited about the speaker and microphone on the Fenix 8 because we were all asking for it. A lot of people wanted this, and now that it's here, I actually don't find myself using it all that often. I will say there is one scenario that I use it for almost on a daily basis, and that is for setting timers. Set a timer for 5 minutes. It's super easy, and it's a lot easier than diving into the clock settings, selecting timer, and then dialing how long you want that timer to be. Whether that is like to set a screen time limit for my kids, or maybe I'm cooking and I need to time how long something's in the oven. All of that, I use the timer feature on the Fenix 8 with the voice recognition because it's just accessible and easy. However, there is one more nuanced use case I've been using the speaker and microphone for, and that's to start activities for activities I don't regularly do. So for example, if I go into my activity menu here, you're gonna find all of my favorites. So it's gonna be running, walking, biking, hiking, all the basic stuff, and nothing super unique. So if I go to like an indoor rock climbing gym and I want to start a workout, I'd have to go down into my more menu here and then find the thing I'm looking for. And it can take a while. And at a certain point, it's almost not worth it because you're in the moment, you're at the rock climbing gym, you've got your harness on, you want to start climbing. Start indoor rock climbing. So as you can see there, I was able to just talk to my watch and say start indoor rock climbing. And now it's asking me for the climbing grade, so I can dial that in if I want to, for example, like a 5.8 or whatever. If you're like in a niche situation, maybe you don't ski all that often and you're at a ski resort, or you're indoor rock climbing or bouldering or something like that, you can start that activity a lot quicker than rather like scrolling through all your menus. Okay, moving on to the next topic, and that's going to be the flashlight. Speaking of things that I use all the time, I need to talk about it in this video. I've mentioned it before in other videos, but the flashlight on the Garmin Fenix 8 or the Instinct or the Enduro, like any watch with a flashlight built in, it's a game changer, man. Like I wish every watch had a flashlight. I wish the Garmin Forerunner 965 had a flashlight. It's incredible how often I use the built-in flashlight on this watch. I would say 10 to 15 to 20 times a day, I find myself using that built-in flashlight. And you might argue, you got a flashlight on your phone already, why use your watch? Well, because it's so accessible on your phone, you gotta get it out of your pocket, you gotta hold a little icon, turns on. On the watch, you simply double tap that button, it's already on your wrist, and you can see what you need to see. I use this when I'm getting out of bed in the middle of the night to get some water or go to the bathroom or something like that. Or even to find my kids' toys when they drop them under their couch or in the car cushions or something like that. Honestly, I don't use the flashlight all that often when I'm like hiking or adventuring, even though I guess you could in a pinch. I use it for like more mundane tasks. And that brings us to the last segment of this video where I want to talk final thoughts and value. So this watch I'm wearing right now is a $1,099 USD watch. That is insanely expensive. Like a lot of people cannot afford that watch, and I get it. Most of the comments I've seen revolving around the Fenix 8 or Enduro or any of the new watches from Garmin is about the price. They're simply too expensive. That's where the discussion turns into, is the Garmin Fenix 8 worth $1,000? And this is gonna vary. This is gonna be a subjective opinion thing, right? Depending on your means. How much money's in your bank account? How much money's in your wallet? How bad do you want the latest technology on your wrist? How seriously do you take your sports or wellness? That's where it all becomes very subjective and opinion-based, and it's really gonna boil down to you and your personal preference. What I will say is, if you want a Garmin Fenix 8 and you do not have $1,000 to spend on a watch, do not spend $1,000 on a watch. Don't put yourself into debt over having a cool thing on your wrist. What I can say is go out and shop for last generation's models. The Garmin Fenix 7 Pro and the Epix Pro can be found on sale for insanely good values right now. Not only that, the original Garmin Epix Gen 2, that's a couple of years old now, can also be purchased new on places like Amazon or even third-party retailers for incredibly low prices. It's really that simple, and down the road, I'm sure Garmin will have plenty of sales on the new Fenix 8 and Enduro 3 and make it a lot more affordable. But right now, it's still so new, so we'll have to wait around for that day to happen. Anyways, that's sort of the end of this video, and this was sort of a rant and unscripted thing just to talk about my experience with the Garmin Fenix 8 so far. If you're still watching this video, you probably liked it, and if you did like it, please consider going down and giving me a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel down below so you don't miss more videos from me in the future. And then after you're done subscribing, also check out the links in the description down below, where you can head over to my friends over at playbetter.com and pick up a new Garmin Fenix 8. They do have free 2-day shipping and a really awesome return policy, so if you change your mind, you can get your money back. And of course, after you check out those links, also check out the links to my other social media accounts, whether that be Strava, my Instagram, my Threads, my Facebook, and of course, my podcast and merch store, where you can pick up a sweet hat like that. And that's sort of the end of this video. Hope you liked it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.